Hello everyone! We all know that Sprunki is an unusual game featuring singing characters who, from a place of joy and happiness, are thrust into a world of horror, with each new mod scarier than the last. But what if we could save all the Sprunki? Could they all survive, and what would they look like? Let's find out. In a version of the game where they all survive, we see an ordinary scene with a sunset, but even here, for some reason, all the characters seem afraid of something. Let's analyze each character to understand what happened to them. Let's start with Orin. He was a kind and cheerful character with no enemies and no one wishing him harm, but as we know in the horror version of the game, he was torn apart by Wenda. Let's explore how he might have survived and what happened to him. We see a sad Orin who is no longer cheerful, but he's alive. His body is wrapped in bandages where his wound was. He is saved, but his face shows that he's endured something horrific. As we know, the second to die was Ratty. He took his own life due to deep inner pain, which was triggered by Wenda. She humiliated and insulted him, saying he was worthless and that the world would be better without him. Eventually, he couldn't fight it anymore and died. But what can we see in the happy version where he survived? I'm so glad he's alive. Half of his face is bandaged and he's badly injured, but he made it through. Even though this is a happy ending for him, he still looks angry. I think he's furious at Wenda and may even be planning revenge. Next, death came to Kluker. Kluker wanted to make the world a better place. He wanted to build new homes for the characters and play areas for everyone to enjoy. But there was an accident on the construction site. I think Wenda was involved in his death too. She could have pushed him from a great height, causing severe head trauma. Now, let's see what happens if he's saved. Like the others who survived, his head is bandaged, he's alive, and that's wonderful, but he shows no emotion. Perhaps the severe injury left lasting effects. Will he always be sad now? Funbot. When Wenda started hurting the others, Funbot couldn't bear it and was likely plunged into a depression. In the version where he survived, he looks almost the same as he did in the original version when everything was still good. But I think he'll never be as cheerful as he once was, because the horrors he witnessed are now etched in his mind, and he'll never be able to forget. Vineria. The sprout growing on her head began rooting into her skull, drawing nutrients from her blood and hair. But in the new version, she looks calm and well. Her body shows no wounds, but her eyes are closed. Perhaps her eyes can be saved, but she needs time to heal without opening them. So, in this version of the game, she'll be okay. However, there's another version where Vineria survives, but now she'll never be able to see again. What do you think about that? Share your thoughts in the comments. Initially, Gray managed to hide, but Wenda found him and struck a serious blow to his head. In the horror version of the game, Gray survived, but was terrified. In the new version, Gray is also alive and still very frightened. Although all the characters survived in this version, he remains wary of danger. What happened to Brood? We know for sure that he was bitten by his brother Simon. Simon tried to kill Brood multiple times, first biting his head, then his body. Despite the severe injuries we see in the horror version, Brood managed to survive. So what's his story in the happy ending? We see Brood alive. His body free of bandages. His wounds look quite different from those of the others. I have a theory that his body heals itself. His wounds seem to be regenerating. I think he'll fully recover soon. Garnell died at Wenda's hands. She tightened his robotic glasses so forcefully that the pressure and glass shards damaged his mouth and left eye. Now, however, we see that he's okay. There's no trace of blood on his neck, and his eye is intact. But like the other survivors, he doesn't look happy. It's hard to go through something like that and just return to a normal life. CX suffered a violent and gruesome death, with Wenda tearing away his face and body in an unrestrained display of brutality. However, in the latest version of the game, he reappears with an almost untouched resemblance to his original self, aside from a subtle color change. His eyes and facial features remain intact, as if he has miraculously been restored. But how could he endure such a vicious assault and survive unscathed? I have a theory. Perhaps Gray intervened just in time, restraining Wenda and preventing the fatal attack, thus sparing CX from a grisly end. What are your thoughts? And what about Sky? Wenda inflicted severe pain upon him, driving 4 rods into his body and continuing to torment him without mercy. The agony was relentless, yet somehow Sky has re-emerged, completely healed and apparently in stable condition. His head is heavily bandaged with one side fully wrapped, hiding any visible wounds. Although he looks less than content, the fact that he's alive is a relief. Here's hoping he continues to recover swiftly and fully regains his strength. Let's dive into Mr. Sun's story next. Previously, we saw him manipulated by Black, coerced into becoming an accomplice. Yet in the alternate version where everyone survives, Mr. Sun looks completely unaffected, as if the Dark Alliance never happened. It's as though we're glimpsing a reality where Mr. Sun resisted Black's influence entirely. Then there's Derpal. We discussed in an earlier video how he met a tragic fate, breaking his jaw and then his neck. But in this survival version, he appears fully healed, his jaw and, most crucially, his neck perfectly restored. In this scenario, he didn't turn into an adversary or play any role in the harm of others. Although he retains a gloomy expression, he remains his true self, intact and unharmed. As for Mr. Tree, his face was nailed to a missing poster, forcing him to constantly carry the weight of guilt over the disappearance of a young girl. In a recent video, we shared a theory about this girl, and even managed to uncover a real-world connection. Her name is McKenna May from Dayton, Ohio. If you haven't caught that theory yet, check it out on our channel. Now, in the alternate happy ending where everyone survives, Mr. Tree is different. He stands peacefully, even smiling, with vibrant green leaves and no poster attached. It seems the mod creator might be hinting at something deeper. Perhaps Mr. Tree's happiness is linked to the missing girl's return. If that's the case, it's a truly hopeful outcome, and I'd love to believe this is the resolution intended. Let's move on to Simon. In the dark storyline, Simon was consumed by intense hunger, even biting his brother Brood. Fortunately, Brood managed to survive, though Simon ultimately ended up taking a life elsewhere to satisfy his hunger. Yet, in the new, happier version, Simon appears completely transformed, as if the darkness in him has vanished entirely. Now he's a typical character, with complete control over his impulses and no intention of harming anyone. It's a remarkable change, showing a side of Simon free from his primal, dangerous urges. Now for Mr. Fun Computer. In the horror version, he somehow managed to survive, yet it seemed like he witnessed everything, desperately wanting to warn us. However, Black ended up silencing him for good. In this altered version, though, Mr. Fun Computer is calm, almost subdued. The once energetic and cheerful screen we knew now only displays a neutral expression with a single note lingering on it. Do you think he still harbors the desire to share what he witnessed? It feels as though there's still something he wants to convey, albeit quietly. Wenda went mad or was manipulated by Black. After that, she became Black's weapon and killed almost all the characters. But what do we see now? All the characters are alive, but Wenda isn't happy at all. I think she's upset because, in this version, she's just an ordinary character. She liked the horror version where she could kill. There, she felt fantastic. When Wenda starts singing, we see her smile, but it's probably just an illusion. Wenda is trying to hide her true feelings behind this fake smile since this is the happy ending, and she's trying to pretend to be happy. But when she finishes singing, we immediately see her real emotions. What do you think about all the Sprunki surviving? How could they have done it? Who saved them? Be sure to share your theories in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and like the video.